Welcome to SportsCenter with Jay and Dan. No Jay, it's Kayla with us. On an historic night in North American pro sports, as we went about our days, we knew the coronavirus was making moves across North America, changing plans. The San Jose Sharks, they said they were going to play with no fans in their stands, and then the NBA shocked everyone.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we knew about this. We had conversations about it. It seemed as though things got very, very real and quick, and that's starting with Rudy Gobert in the NBA suspending this season, something I don't think a lot of us would have seen.
No, the NBA suspending its season until further notice after Utah Jazz center Rudy Gobert tested positive for the coronavirus. This game, a short time after Wednesday night's game between the Jazz and Oklahoma City Thunder, was postponed by the NBA. Players are actually set for tip-off before the Thunder medical staff ran onto the court, spoke to the refs, as for which players from both teams were sent back to their locker rooms. The referees then waited for league approval to play the game before they were also instructed to leave the floor. The game was eventually postponed, and fans were instructed to leave the arena. After leaving the court, players were put in quarantine and tested in the locker room. Earlier in the day, Rudy Gobert and Emmanuel Mudiay were ruled out of the game due to undisclosed illnesses. Gobert was reportedly never at the arena. After the game's postponement, it was reported that Gobert preliminary tested positive for the coronavirus. And moments after that, the NBA released their announcement that the 2020 season would be suspended until further notice. The NBA announced that a player on the Utah Jazz has preliminarily tested positive for COVID-19. At that time, tonight's game was canceled. The affected player was not in the arena. The NBA is suspending gameplay following the conclusion of tonight's schedule of games until further notice. The NBA will use this hiatus to determine next steps for moving forward in regard to the coronavirus pandemic. Let's hear from Nabil Karim and Woj.
How did the league come to this decision?
Well, you know, essentially once you had two teams in a quarantine state in Oklahoma City tonight, there was no way to go forward with games, and especially the Jazz. This is a team with a player now who's tested positive, and you know there's a process with which they'll be able to even leave Oklahoma City to get back to Utah. Just hours earlier, the league's owners were on a conference call with Adam Silver with the league office, and the consensus on that call that I was told was that they would announce tomorrow that the league was going to continue playing games, but without fans in the arena. There were several owners on the call whose thought was maybe we just take a hiatus and not play, but it was overwhelming to continue to play, and all that changed with Rudy Gobert's positive test. And now the league's in a situation where they don't know when they will play again in the foreseeable future.
Well, I know this is a fluid situation, but what is your sense for the next steps for the league? Maybe the next 24, 48 hours. What can you tell us?
Well, the league is going to talk again with its board of governors, its owners. You know, tomorrow that's going to continue to be an ongoing conversation. There was already a conference call set with the team presidents and general managers. Those are the individuals on the front line, you know, maybe most responsible for the safety of players and coaches and fans in the arena. And, you know, they haven't been a big part of this conversation yet with the league. So that call may happen still tomorrow. But right now, there's a lot of contingencies that have to get into place. And there's going to have to be a lot of cooperation among the NBA about, first, when is it safe to be able to play games again, for teams to be back on the floor. But here's something in the last few days, and especially the last couple days, you heard a lot of around the league office with teams, was the fact that there hadn't been a great deal of testing yet in this country, and that we were going to see more positive tests. They knew that that would impact this process, and it already has. There's going to be other players and perhaps, you know, staff members who may test positive for the coronavirus, and that's certainly going to impact how they can try to piece a season back together. But this is a league financially that has already lost a lot of money with Daryl Morey's tweet and the relationship that was fractured with China, and this is certainly going to cost a lot of money going forward. So you can, listen, they're going to want to find a way to play games again this season, have a postseason, get games back on television. But right now, this is a league that is paralyzed.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're thinking of teams that have played the Utah Jazz, one of them being the Toronto Raptors, who are out in the community doing community work on Wednesday. So obviously the level of fear has heightened. ESPN, according to them, saying that teams that have played the Utah Jazz over the last 10 days, they should self-quarantine. Now, after the league announced the season was suspended, Mark Cuban and other players around the league reacted to the decision.
How concerned are you about this whole situation?
Well, obviously very concerned, but it's not necessarily about basketball. Obviously, this is much bigger than basketball. I'm concerned about, will my kids have school or not? I'm concerned, are we all doing the right thing? Because this is obviously new territory. This is certainly a black swan event in my experiences, and so, basketball actually becomes secondary.
That's what it's all about, is this safety, and you feel for Gobert and being in this situation, and it's a lot of things at stake when you think about this. So it's just like, I think even worrying about, oh man, I didn't get to play my last 15 games, that's selfish, because I think safety and everybody's health is more important to, for me.
It's kind of a scary situation. I've been around the game a long time. I don't ever remember the season being paused in the middle of it or at the end of it because of this pandemic that is occurring right now across the globe. So it's scary. I mean, this is, you lose a game and you get upset. Take a step back, you think about how this is affecting millions and millions of people around the world. And it's affected, Rudy Gobert. You think this is, it's not going to affect us. We're the NBA. One of our players has the coronavirus. And, who knows what that means for their team and the other teams that, have been with them. So you really get concerned for just what's going on, not just here in the NBA, but in the entire world.
I could care less about the game tonight. It's more about, the people's health. First off, Rudy, praying for him. I know it's a lot. He's thinking about this. This sucks. This happened to anybody, but to be that person that everybody's talking about and the reason why it's canceled. I feel for him, praying for him.
Extremely surreal right now. Extremely surreal. This is reality now for us, and it's no longer just on TV and somewhere in a different country. This is now home.
Okay, so Magic forward and a teammate of Rudy Gobert's with the French national team, Evan Fournier, taking to Twitter to share this message, was just on the phone with Rudy. He is doing good, man. Let's not panic, everyone. Love you all. With more, here's Rick Westhead.
This is a virus that, the experts now believe can live on surfaces for up to 9 days if those surfaces aren't cleaned off. And you can be a carrier of this virus for 5 or 6 days and be completely symptom-free. So, imagine the Toronto Raptors playing Utah, and Rudy Gobert plays more than 32 minutes against the Raptors. It's absolutely possible that he, at that time, was a carrier of coronavirus. And it does, as you guys have pointed out, it puts the Raptors in the position now of obviously having to test all of their players and families and everyone. I would imagine there's a scramble to find the families that the Raptors players were in contact with today at the bowling alley. So there's a lot of moving parts on this. Just right now, I'm looking at the website of the U.S. Centers for Disease and Control, and I can't believe the stats that I'm seeing. Yesterday in the U.S., there were 8 tests for coronavirus. That's how many tests were processed yesterday, 8 in the entire U.S. And how are you possibly going to get ahead of a disease that is a pandemic and all we have to do is look overseas to what's happening to Italy, and we can see kind of a worst case scenario for what could happen in Canada in the next couple of weeks and in the U.S. in the next couple of weeks. And, it's actually surprising that we've seen some of the events in the last couple of days, seen National Hockey League teams ignore the advice of public health officers and play in arenas that are full of fans. Well, it's a step. It's a step. It's better than having 15,000 people sitting shoulder to shoulder, climbing over each other when they're going to the bathroom and eating next to each other and coughing and yelling and cheering. I don't know if there's a perfect solution. I guess the perfect solution would be for everyone to just pause and take a couple months, maybe a month or two, whatever. Again, this is not going to be driven by people who are sports executives or journalists. We need to listen to public health experts and infectious disease experts. And if they say, shut it down, close schools, limit access to nursing homes and hospitals, cancel sports events, whether it's House League hockey, whether it's the NHL, whether it's the NBA, I think haven't we reached the point where we should be listening to the people who have the expertise in this area?
Well said by Rick, and this is what the Utah Jazz have been up to in the last 2 weeks. So you have to wonder about the Raptors. You also have to. They were in Detroit. They were in Boston. They were in New York at the MSG. So a lot to be considered. And again, the reason for the NBA putting everything on pause is to limit the spread. Not because of current cases, because you can't get a proper number on those, is to limit the spread and limit contact with potential carriers. Jack Armstrong spoke with Dutchie and Jen earlier.
From a Toronto perspective, the fact that the Raptors played the Jazz on Monday, and it affects you firsthand because the Raptors played against them, and then everyone traveled back on the plane together, and it's just one of those things that you concern yourself with. But nonetheless, I think the NBA has handled it the right way, and I think it's the right approach.
Jack, it is now a reactive situation, as you just said, because you were in the building that night. You were on the plane. From your standpoint, have you heard anything from the Raptors, or do you have any sense of how you move forward after you've been in a situation where, now that we know coronavirus was there?
No, not yet. I mean, it literally just happened 10 minutes ago. They were, to the credit of MLSD and the Raptors and the NBA, they've been handling this. They've been on it big time, proactive, ahead of the curve, trying to make sure that all these measures are being considered and discussed. So I think it's a matter of just none of us have ever dealt with anything like this before. But I do credit the folks at the NBA and MLSD and the Raptors and everyone involved to trying to be proactive and ahead of the curve. So I think whatever happens next will be from a place of progressive thought and trying to do the right thing and protect people from something that we really don't know 100% about.
Boy, isn't that the truth? I agree with you 100%, Jack. The NBA really had no choice. Now, Adam Silver had floated the idea of potentially playing games in empty buildings, and then LeBron had said, well, listen, I'm not going to play if there's no fans there. That's who I play for. He subsequently ended up walking that back. And I really think with the positive test that they got today with Rudy Gobert, that changed everything, don't you?
No, there's no question. And in defense of LeBron James, I mean, he's a young man that's playing the game. He's traveling. He's busy every night worrying about the game of basketball. And he doesn't know about, in some way, shape, or form, some of these big things that are going on in society and isn't aware of it all. And I think after he found out about what exactly is going on, I think to his credit, he dialed back his rhetoric and recognized that this is something that's a lot bigger than me, a lot bigger than my camp, a lot bigger than my team, a lot bigger than even the NBA. And so to me, I think he's handled it right, and more importantly, the NBA's handled it right.
So, yes, the NBA, they did handle it right. You're going to get a lot of questions or friends or family members saying, well, this is a drastic measure. But if you put it in perspective, if you have the chance to limit deaths when you know you can do that,
absolutely,
you do that.
Absolutely. All it took was one player and one league, and no doubt it's going to have a ripple effect with many other leagues. Now, keep in mind, when the news came out, the NHL games, they were still underway. Yep. So there was a decision to be made for them, and this is what the NHL had to say. Numerous leagues have been affected. The Columbus Blue Jackets have closed home games to public after the governor of Ohio announced an order prohibiting mass gatherings in the state. The team released the following statement Wednesday saying, quote, remaining home games while in order is in effect, including tomorrow against Pittsburgh, will be played as scheduled, but with restricted attendance in compliance with today's announcement. The games will be closed to the public. And the San Jose Sharks have closed their next 3 home games to the public. This comes after a 3-week ban on large gatherings in Santa Clara County. And after the NBA came out with their statement, the NHL came out with theirs. And a quote, the National Hockey League is aware of the NBA's decision tonight to indefinitely suspend its season due to a player testing positive for the coronavirus. The NHL is continuing to consult with medical experts and is evaluating the options. We expect to have a further update tomorrow. As for the NHLPA, they had put out a statement as well saying, we are in continuous contact with the NHL regarding the coronavirus and the recent announcement by the NBA. These decisions will continue tomorrow morning, and we will consult with players before commenting any further. With more, let's hear from Patrick Kane.
Patrick, how aware are you of what's going on? I mean, when you're playing a game like that, how aware are you about the NBA suspending its season? Does that trickle into the locker room at all?
I didn't hear about it till after the game, so, you know, it's just kind of pretty fresh and new to me right now, but I guess things are getting pretty real around here, so, you know, it is what it is. I guess we'll take the recommendations that we get, and hopefully it passes by soon. And, you know, I think as players, you want to keep playing the games and keep the season going. And, you know, for us, I think we're pretty excited about this 3-game stretch we had here. San Jose, Ottawa, and Washington, and, you know, trying to win these games and get ourselves back into it again.
How much does an athlete's training go into keeping the focus then in situations like this when the outside world is intruding upon?
Yeah, I mean, you try to focus on what's at hand, to be honest with you. Try not to think about it too much. We've been told to wash our hands, don't touch our face, and drink a lot of water. And, you know, hopefully that would be enough. But obviously, you know, you look at the NBA, there's some pretty highly conditioned athletes as well, and it trickled into that league. So I guess you never know what can happen.
Patrick, how devastating would it be, though, if the season ended either today or tomorrow?
Again, I mean, I think that's all kind of speculation right now, so I think that's something we'll wait and hear about.
The NHL says that they're evaluating, they're aware of their situation, so they say they may have an update tomorrow. Does that give you any concern?
No, we'll just kind of wait and see what happens. Again, like, I don't think we really know much about the situation, except that the NBA suspended games, and we'll see what the NHL does, so we'll kind of wait to hear about it.
Okay, let's bring in Frank Seravalli. I wish NHL players could take the Jurgen Klopp approach and just say,
we're not the experts.
We're not the experts.
We don't know.
We can't answer these questions. So, Frank, maybe you can. So the NHL kind of taking a let's sleep on it approach to this.
Well, I'm not the expert either. I'm not in that room as well. But what I can tell you is that the message from the NHL is essentially we need more time. You talk to people around the NHL, and they're shocked by this decision from the NBA because a lot of what they heard as they're working in conjunction with the NBA, you saw the press release that the 4 major leagues that are playing right now put out on Monday together. They're all working together, and so the NBA's owners were even surprised given that call that they had earlier today, and that was not the plan to put the season on hiatus and suspend things. So where the NHL stands at this point, they're canvassing all parties involved. They're talking to the owners, they're talking to the team presidents, and they're also very much in touch with the NHL Players Association, which has a seat at the table here, and that organization is canvassing its own executive committee. So I think it's safe to say that a significant day is on tap for the NHL on Thursday as they try to chart a path forward here in a position where this is unprecedented, uncharted waters.
Yeah, Frank, I mean, I think things moved a lot quicker than a lot of people were expecting. Now, what options does the league have at this point and how to move forward?
Kayla, just about anything that you could think of and that's been talked about in the public sphere is on the table. So the NHL could wake up on Thursday and announce that they are indeed going to suspend operations and put the league on hiatus. And I think there's a lot of people that think there's probably no other path forward except to do that. But I think the toughest part for the NHL is that this has kind of come in fits and starts. You've gotten very little federal oversight and direction. It's been all mandated from local governments. And so there hasn't been anyone that's been able to step up so far and kind of put the NHL and take the NHL's decision out of its hands so they could continue to play games in arenas that do not have fans in them. They could decide to postpone and say, look, we're taking a few weeks off and we're going to pick up the same exact schedule later in the year, which will push everything back. They could say, look, the playoffs are going to start in a few weeks and we're going to take a break and the season ends, the regular season right now after 85% of the schedule has been played. There's so many different options on the table, and the NHL is simply at this point saying, we want to take our time and make sure that we do this right because there's no real way to walk this back after taking a snap decision. And so given that the NHL is not facing some of the same pressing concerns, we know that no player to this date has tested positive for the coronavirus, that they're going to take their time and make sure they get it right.
Frank, this is a situation where life comes at you fast. A week ago, we were talking about the emergency backup goalie situation in the NHL.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden we're talking about something that is really life or death at this point, something that the NHL and its players are taking seriously, a total new reality for us all.
Appreciate it, Frank. Still to come, Connor McDavid is back as the Oilers take on the Jets. Yeah, they did play hockey Wednesday night. Oilers highlights coming up.
Hockey was played on Wednesday. Jets taking on the Oilers. Winnipeg tied for the top wildcard spot in the West, but sit outside the playoff picture based on games played. Now, this one's scoreless into what was a wild second period. Seconds after the opening faceoff, Oilers dump it in. Connor Hellebuyck misplays it. That is Tyler Ennis right there to poke it in. Ennis has his third since joining Edmonton just 9 seconds into the period. The Oilers open up the score. Now midway through the frame. Another wild sequence here. Blake Wheeler's pass deflects off James Dillon in. Wheeler's 22nd of the season ties things up at 1. Other end, Oilers odd man rush. Ennis going to be the beneficiary of that earlier bounce. Robbed by Hellebuyck, and then Neil Pionk, who bats it off the goal line. Now late in the frame, Mike Smith can't handle the puck. Leaves it on a tee for Cody Eakin, and he finds Patrick Laine all alone in front. His 28th gives Winnipeg its first lead. That would not last long, though. Under 2 minutes later, Connor McDavid gets behind the D.
As McDavid on his left as he stick handles in.
And he slips it past Hellebuyck. McDavid missed Edmonton's last game due to illness. Tucks in his 34th to end a wild second frame. That was good. Then, opening minute of the third, Leon Draisaitl's pass. Block. Kyle Connor sent in all alone. And he beats Smith 5 home. Connor had a 5-game point streak snap Monday against Arizona. Gets back on track here with his 37th. The Jets retake the lead. Final minute, oil net empty. Draisaitl making a solo rush. Gets crushed by Pionk. Draisaitl held pointless for a third straight game, his longest drought of the season. Jets earn a crucial win. 4-2, the final.
Obviously, it's unfortunate, but public health and safety is a priority and is more important than any sporting event right now. So, obviously, they decided to suspend it and see where it goes from there. But the NHL, I'm sure, is going to review and they'll make a decision whether or not to keep playing. But that's out of our hands.
Just it hits you so hard. Like I don't know. I guess we just wait to that meeting tomorrow and see the direction you want to go. I mean, it's obviously it's not just a sports thing. It's a life thing. So we'll just follow the directive of the NHL and the NHLPA, what they decide.
Sends in Kings. Hey, Bobby Ryan and Anze Kopitar catching up before puck drop. Opening shift. Brady Tkachuk to Ryan. One-timer beats Cal Pedersen. His fifth, just 29 seconds in. Gives Ottawa the lead. Kings riding a 6-game winning streak. Making a late playoff push. Oh, right. I just looked where they are in the standings. That's Trevor Lewis, his 6th. This game's tied at 1. Late in the period, Colin White cross-checks Austin Wagner. They drop him. This is Colin White's first career fight. Did okay. 1-1 after 20. Second period, Trevor Moore in on goal. Stopped by Craig Anderson. He's looking for a 5th straight win against LA. Just over a minute left in the period. Michael Amadio to Nick Trockhorkin. That's a made-up human. It's still 1-1 after 2. Blues and Ducks, a continuation of a February 11th game, which was postponed following Jay Bouwmeester's cardiac incident. The game started, tied 1-1. First period, Ducks turn it over. Anthony Stolarz, huge glove save. Making his first NHL start since April 4th. Rob Semi-Blades. Same frame, Blues man advantage. Alex Pietrangelo skirts. His 11th of the season, leads all D-men. Also tied for second most in a season by a Blues defenseman. In the second, Ducks win the face-off. Yanni Hakanpää gets it through. His first NHL goal. Hakanpää. Blues extra man. Zach Sanford. Tied. Oh no, Blues took the Blues win. Blues win.
Oh, they're upset because they felt
Blues win. Sharks, Blackhawks. Over the last 5 games, Chicago is 0 for 14 on the power play in the second. Blackhawks down 1-0 on the man advantage. Duncan Keith lets it fly from the point. That beats Aaron Dell. Keith with just his 2nd goal in his last 47 games. Ties things up at 1. Later, Chicago back on the man advantage. Alex DeBrincat, great feed for Patrick Kane. He buries it. Kane's team leading 32nd on the year. The Blackhawks with back-to-back power play goals, and that gives them the lead. Third period we go. Now 4-2 Chicago. Dell makes the initial stop. Kane buries the rebound for his 2nd of the night, though. Kane with 5 goals in his last 5 games. Less than 2 minutes later, Kirby Dach leaves it for Dominik Kubalik, and he absolutely hammers it into the back of the net. Kubalik's 30th on the year. He leads the league in rookie scoring by 10 goals. The Blackhawks take it 6-2.
And Craig Button's here. As I mentioned off the top of the show, an historic night in pro sports in North America. There is no book where you open up how to run a pro sports league. Oh, page 67, pandemic. This is what you do. So this is something that has never been encountered before.
Yeah, it's uncharted water. We know that, and there's no question that, you know, there is no manual for it. But what I would say is the World Health Association has spoken. They've called it a pandemic.
Yeah.
We've talked about containment. The health experts have talked about how the spread of this is not getting better, it's getting worse. So, you know, the NBA, it's an unprecedented step with respect to sports league suspending operations. But it's not unprecedented in terms of looking out for the welfare of your society and of your country and of the world, quite frankly. And so the Department of Safety in the National Hockey League takes care of player safety. Well, I think the World Health Organization has spoken on world safety.
Right. Yes.
And should we not take their recommendations?
So that is my question, because you see the news going down with the NBA. Games are still being played in the NHL. You look specifically at the game in LA. Would you not think that the NHL would kind of act swiftly, suspend play per se, and kind of regroup? Or how quickly can something like this be made?
Yeah, well, the NBA played games on this Wednesday night as well. There were some games that were suspended and canceled. Yep. So I understand that. Kayla, what I believe is the right time to do the right thing is right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, whatever that timing is, whether it's at 10 o'clock or whether it's at the completion of the night, there's no waiting. It needs to happen. I mean, we see a player test positive in the NBA for the coronavirus. So is that the tipping point? I don't think that should be the tipping point.
Well, Craig, I mean, you're looking at the Utah Jazz, who have taken planes that other teams have been on. They've been in locker rooms that other teams have been in, not just in the NBA, the NHL, by the way. So, you know, you wonder what could the holdup be?
Yeah. Well, Santa Clara community said no more public gatherings over 1,000 people. The NCAA announced today March Madness, you know, not going on with spectators, right? Like, what more do you need? Like, what more do you need? I understand there's significant economic consequences.
But that's secondary.
Absolutely secondary. I'm talking from the sports world. We're talking trillions in the world economy here.
Yeah.
They were saying, so let's not talk about $100 million. And that's why, you know, there is no choice here. And when we see how Mark Cuban received the information tonight, Adam Silver, they've already had the talk with all the owners. Gary Bettman's had the talk with all the owners. And now it's about, okay, Gary's, you know, he has been given the authority to make that decision. You have to keep everybody informed. They're already informed. So now, and I believe that Gary has shown really strong leadership over the course of his tenure as the commissioner.
Yes.
I don't doubt that that's not going to happen, but it needs to happen as swiftly and as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's a sleepless night for Gary Bettman and the NHL.
Yes,
for
very well said, Dan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Button. We have plenty more on the coronavirus reaction from around the world as we continue here on SportsCenter with Jay and Dan.
The NCAA has announced only essential staff and limited family will attend upcoming championship events, including the men's and women's Division I basketball tournaments. NCAA President Mark Emmert said in a statement, "While I understand how disappointing this is for all fans of our sports, my decision is based on the current understanding of how COVID-19 is progressing in the United States. This decision is in the best interest of public health, including that of coaches, administrators, fans, and most importantly, our student athletes." March Madness gets underway with the first 4 next Tuesday. And I think why we say, okay, things really got real is because when you look at sports, it's used as an escape for a lot of people. It's used to escape from, I guess, the world's problems. Well, guess what? You can't escape from the world's problems because now here it is, and this is a very real situation that's affecting humans. At the end of the day, that's what we all are.
No, he's a great human. Leo Routins, our colleague. If you follow him on social media, he has a great perspective, very positive perspective. I want to get his take on all this as the NBA suspends play, and here he is now.
Well, if you know one thing about Adam Silver, he's always proactive. I mean, he's not going to wait around, and you know that he's the type of person, he's gone to the experts. He's gone to the top of the food chain to figure out, you know, what exactly this is all about, what's the best plan to take. I'm not surprised that he took this action. And quite frankly, I mean, you know, and I heard Jack talking as well that, you know, we still have to live our lives. We just have to be careful because this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And I think it's so important that the medical experts that really understand what's going on, that realize, you know, how this thing could grow, how quickly it can grow, and how it has to be identified. If you've been listening to any of those people talk over the last week or 2 weeks, you would know that this is something we all have to take seriously. So I'm not surprised at the NBA's reaction. When you talk about playing in empty arenas, you know, that's one possible solution, but at the same time, you're still involving a lot of people in any of these scenarios, and you know, to basically shut it down, and who knows for how long, right? That's the thing. Nobody knows for how long. There's different scenarios you hear people talking about, whether it's 2 weeks, whether it's 4 weeks, whether it's 6 weeks. We don't know any of that at this point. All we can do is just try to you know, listen to the medical experts, and hopefully the more we find out about this, the more tests that are taken, the more gauge you have on actual numbers, are we going to know what the future holds here.
Yes. Listen to medical experts.
Period.
Don't read something on Twitter and say, well, this person said that. And stop stocking up on toilet paper.
That part. Get your hand sanitizer and wash your hands, okay? I'm learning that people don't know how to do that. Wash your hands. Some news also, the G League announcing that they're going to suspend their season. The Raptors have been told to self-quarantine for 14 days. Of course, they played the Utah Jazz on Monday. We're going to have plenty more reaction, of course, plenty more news when we return. Should know that the Hawks actually played on Wednesday, so that could have been Vince Carter's final game. Never had that game in Toronto, but we'll have more reaction when we return.
The Knicks and Hawks were in the middle of their game when the NBA suspended the season. So they finished the game. Vince Carter, with 19.5 seconds left in overtime, he subbed into the game. Huge crowd. Huge crowd. Huge cheer from the crowd. As it could be his final game in the NBA, his final moments in the NBA. Hawks, possession.
See if the Knicks will let him score his last basket.
That's what they're going to do. Carter for three.
Put in there.
Unbelievable. What an appropriate way to finish for the great Vince Carter.
And the reaction of the Knicks players, they cheered when it went in.
This bizarre
They knew it could possibly be his final moments in the NBA.
Absolutely.
So did Vince.
Win, a very spirited win for the Knicks.
It's a weird way to end a career for me, but it's just the way it goes sometimes. I'm one with it. It's been a great career, great run. You know, just great to be around the guys and just, you know, at first I was just like, nah, I don't want to go in. You know, it is what it is. And, you know, I'm glad I got out there just to be a part of a special moment. Because, like I said, we just don't know. Right. That's kind of in my mind probably. It's like, you know, 2 weeks and then we'll see what happens. But if not, you know, it'll be a special memory for me, you know, because it'll be talked about forever. So when I always hear about it, I can always revert back to that last basket.
Finally, a moment that made us smile.
Yeah. I mean, but also have smile, because that means that Vince Carter may not play his final game in Toronto, which I'm sure Raptors fans would have wanted.
All right, because of the nature of the show, no worst play of the day, no highlight of the night, no, you blew it.
There is no highlight of the night.
Yeah, because, well, in all my years, this is the strangest, most surreal show I've ever been a part of.
I don't have any other word to describe the times that we are in but wild.
Yeah.
Just wild, scary times.
For the latest, you just check out CTV News and also tsn.ca. They'll have up-to-the-minute updates on what's going on and the NHL's response when it does come.